victim pain. Pseudo-sadism behaviors that relate to sadism but are not conducted on conscious victims or post-mortem. So the offender does not receive the verbal or psychological feedback from the victim to meet the sadistic requirements, and thus is based more on fantasy rather than true sadistic behavior. These are referred to as necrophilia or post-mortem mutilations. As part of a discussion on sadistic behavior, we should touch on the different types of psychopathy. There are three main types discussed by Turvey, 2012, and a fourth type that is not entirely covered but elaborated on during an email exchange with Turvey. A psychopath is a social predator who often charms and manipulates his or her way through life. Psychopaths are void of conscience and feel no emotions. They do not experience guilt or regret. Turvey, 2012. A sociopath has the same behavioral characteristics as a psychopath. However, sociopaths have no moral code and do not abide by the general rules of society. Turvey, 2012. The difference between the two is that a sociopath is often nervous and easily enraged. Their crimes are often disorganized and not premeditated. Psychopaths show no empathy and are charismatic and manipulative. Crimes are often planned out meticulously and difficult to link to the offender. Bond, 2014. Copyright 2023 Apis, all rights reserved.
Okay, what happened?
The intentional infliction of psychological or physical suffering on a conscious victim, able to experience pain or humiliation for the purpose of sexual gratification. Turvey, 2012. A sadistic offender gathers the greatest satisfaction from the response of the victim to the torture, rather than the actual carrying out of the act. An example of this would be an offender biting a victim's breast to the point of drawing blood. It is not the actual contact with the breast that arouses the offender, but the act of causing the victim pain. Pseudo-sadism behaviors that relate to sadism, but are not conducted on conscious victims or post-mortem. So the offender does not receive the verbal or psychological feedback from the victim to meet the sadistic requirements, and thus is based more on fantasy rather than true sadistic behavior. These are referred to as necrophilia or post-mortem mutilations. As part of a discussion on sadistic behavior, we should touch on the different types of psychopathy. There are three main types discussed by Turvey, 2012, and a fourth type that is not entirely covered but elaborated on during an email exchange with Turvey. A psychopath is a social predator who often charms and manipulates his or her way through life. Psychopaths are void of conscience and feel no emotions. They do not experience guilt or regret. Turvey, 2012. A sociopath has the same behavioral characteristics as a psychopath. However, sociopaths have no moral code and do not abide by the general rules of society. Turvey, 2012. The difference between the two is that a sociopath is often nervous and easily enraged. Their crimes are often disorganized and not premeditated. Psychopaths show no empathy and are charismatic and manipulative. Crimes are often planned out meticulously and difficult to link to the offender. Bond, 2014. Copyright 2023 Apis, all rights reserved.
I still didn't understand that. I'm not understanding. I heard everything she said, but
Sadism is the intentional infliction of psychological or physical suffering on a conscious victim, able to experience pain or humiliation for the purpose of sexual gratification. Turvey, 2012. A sadistic offender gathers the greatest satisfaction from the response of the victim to the torture, rather than the actual carrying out of the act. An example of this would be an offender biting a victim's breast to the point of drawing blood. It is not the actual contact with the breast that arouses the offender, but the act of causing the victim pain. Pseudo-sadism behaviors that relate to sadism, but are not conducted on conscious victims or post-mortem. So the offender does not receive the verbal or psychological feedback from the victim to meet the sadistic requirements, and thus is based more on fantasy rather than true sadistic behavior. These are referred to as necrophilia or post-mortem mutilations. As part of a discussion on sadistic behavior, we should touch on the different types of psychopathy. There are three main types discussed by Turvey, 2012, and a fourth type that is not entirely covered but elaborated on during an email exchange with Turvey. A psychopath is a social predator who often charms and manipulates his or her way through life. Psychopaths are void of conscience and feel no emotions. They do not experience guilt or regret. Turvey, 2012. A sociopath has the same behavioral characteristics as a psychopath. However, sociopaths have no moral code and do not abide by the general rules of society. Turvey, 2012. The difference between the two is that a sociopath is often nervous and easily enraged. Their crimes are often disorganized and not premeditated. Psychopaths show no empathy and are charismatic and manipulative. Crimes are often planned out meticulously.
Okay, I get it.
To the offender. Bond, 2014. Copyright 2023 Apis. All rights reserved.
So I get it now. So psychopaths and sociopaths. Psychopaths are people who are planned out. Sociopaths is people who can't control their anger. Thank you. Because I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean? Because I swear to God, it was like she was talking, but the words was going over my head.
Strangulation. Some offenders use this in order to bring the victim in and out of consciousness in order to obtain sexual gratification. Some offenders use this as part of their fantasy, while others will use this type of strangulation act to control the victim so the rest of the fantasy can be played out. Some offenders bite their victims or leave what is commonly called biting and ecchymotic patterns. Ecchymotic patterns. Note ecchymosis is just a fancy medical way of saying a bruise. Bite marks, while commonly on the breast, neck, or genitals, may also be attributed to defensive action if found on arms, clavicle, or other areas not generally associated with sexual gratification. Electric shock, cutting, or flagellation, performed on the victim prior to death, is an indication of sadism. In addition, you may note excessive stab wounds in not fatal locations as a sign of sadism. Mental torture, such as killing another victim in front of the victim, or having them write a letter to their loved ones prior to death. Terrorists often engage in this type of sadistic behavior. Healy et al., 2012, conducted an interesting study that looked at whether offenders diagnosed as sadistic shared the same characteristics as other offenders who carried out sexual homicides. The following results were obtained. Similarities between sadistic offenders and non-sadistic offenders. Both were found to use excessive force, 100% of sadists and 92% of non-sadistic. Differences between sadistic offenders and non-sadistic offenders. Sadist crimes were premeditated, 90% versus 62%. Sadists were more likely to kidnap and confine their victims, 17% versus 6%. Sadists were more likely to humiliate their victims, 63% versus 37%. Sadists were more likely to mutilate their victims, 21% versus 3%. The study showed that when developing a profile for a sexual homicide, the characteristics that distinguished a sadist from a non-sadist were premeditation, use of restraints, humiliation, and mutilation. Healy et al., 2012. Copyright 2023 Apis, all rights reserved.
I'm still not understanding. Oh my God, this is crazy. This is fucking nuts. I am sitting here literally freaking listening to this lady talk, and I still don't understand her. fuck? What, did they hire some crackheads to paint the damn thingy? I think they hired some crackheads to paint outside. Get your ass away from them. Oh my God. That warms my heart. That made me feel, what the fuck was that? But I'm exploring the house. Look, explore the house for clues. It look abandoned. Nuts. They could at least play the song. Dun, dun, dun. Da, 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 da. That's creepy. That's locked. I found one clue. I feel like Blue's Clues. OX. KOX? Is it KOX? I'm trying to figure out what the fuck does that mean? And why I make a sound like that? I seen KOX, I guess. Well, I can't find nothing. I'm not able to find anything. And that fucking thunder loud as a motherfucker. I don't understand what the fuck is going on, what I'm supposed to find. Yeah, that's good. That's some good shit right now. gonna keep making me look at this. Worst game ever. This game is glitching. Ain't no other thing to interact with. I done interacted with every fucking thing. Turn the bitch around or something.
As we have learned in previous readings, paraphilias are abnormal behaviors involving deviant behavior and often involve urges of a sexual nature based on fantasies. Autoerotic asphyxia is considered a paraphilia popular with young adult males, but not exclusive to males. Rare cases of women involving autoerotic asphyxia have been reported. As many as 100 cases of death a year are reportedly due to autoerotic asphyxiation, Riviello, 2009. Other paraphilias often associated with autoerotic asphyxiation include bondage and masochism. In 25 autoerotic asphyxiation cases, there is evidence of taut transvestite fetish. Myers et al., 2008. The act involves cerebral hypoxia or decreasing the oxygen supply to the brain. Myers et al., 2008. Cerebral hypoxia is established by suffocation or strangulation while simultaneously masturbating. Typical methods of oxygen deprivation include neck ligatures, hangings, plastic bags, chest compression, suffocating masks, oxygen replacement with gas. The usual basic setup includes tying of the wrists and a noose around the neck with a rope leading to the ankles, which allows for tightening of the noose when the victim straightens his legs. Padding or bags are often found over the head. The padding is to prevent a pattern of bruising on the neck that may look suspicious to family members. Although the typical scene is the victim's home, the setups are designed. Usually, the door is locked from the inside, and there is often pornography in plain view. The combination of masturbation and oxygen deprivation creates a feeling of sexual euphoria and increases the sensitivity of the orgasm experience. Emotions are also heightened in some individuals due to the adrenaline rush experienced as a result of the danger involved in autoerotic asphyxia. The act is considered dangerous because of how quickly a decreased oxygen supply can lead to unconsciousness. Strangulation can lead to loss of consciousness in a few seconds and death in less than a minute. Strangulation compresses and blocks the carotid arteries, which carry blood from the heart to the brain. Individuals that experiment with autoerotic asphyxia think they have more time than they actually do to restrict airflow. Even though an individual can hold their breath for 3 minutes or more underwater, it is not the same when you are restricting the carotid arteries. When an individual holds their breath, oxygen content of the blood gradually declines. When the carotid arteries are blocked, the blood supply to the brain is abruptly interrupted. Riviello, 2009. Death often happens in individuals when the escape mechanism fails. Copyright 2023 Apis, all rights reserved.
Man, what the fuck? They fucked me up today. I'm just saying. So fucking irritated. Like, what the fuck? At least not that bad. I don't know which one. I guess this did.
Content loaded. Conclusion. Conclusion. Next, sadists are organized and meticulous murderers who often live outwardly everyday lives with a job and family. Their greatest gift is that of disguise. Our other topic this week dealt not with homicide, but with the secret life experienced by those with a sick paraphilia addiction known as sexual asphyxia. Recently, there has been an increase in reports of autoerotic asphyxiation, most likely due to increased media coverage of celebrity deaths involving these acts. There has been an increasing popularity among the homosexual population of a ritual, which they refer to as scarfing. Scarfing refers to the silk sash used as a ligature. Typically, in these situations, the victim, although he does not realize he is a victim at first, hangs himself in order to deprive the brain of oxygen while his partner performs oral sex. The victim often deprives himself of oxygen for too long, resulting in death. Copyright 2023 APHIS, all rights reserved.
I didn't understand what that was for. This build. Hey, trick. This motherfucker is running around beating people up.
New thread. Filter by all threads. Sort by you must start a thread before you can read and reply to other threads.
Nigga.
Start a new thread. Start a new thread. Filter by one Describe and discuss an offender's sadistic characteristics associated with various criminal behaviors and criminal offender personalities. In addition, list and discuss the characteristics of an autoerotic fatality versus a suicide, and how an autoerotic fatality may be mistakenly identified as a suicide.
Damn, can I please land? Fuck. Yeah. I can't drive this. That just fucked my whole understanding up. Yeah, this is gonna be the last one. Cause this shit will. Oops. Fuck. bad.
One, sadistic characteristics in criminal offenders. Sadistic offenders often derive pleasure from inflicting pain, suffering, or humiliation on others. These traits manifest in various criminal behaviors such as sexual assault, torture, and serial killings. 1. Key characteristics include manipulativeness and control, a need to dominate and meticulously plan crimes. Lack of empathy, inability to empathize, enabling harm without remorse. Pleasure in suffering, enjoyment from witnessing or causing pain. Grandiosity, a sense of superiority, showcasing power or intelligence. 2. Autoerotic fatality versus suicide. An autoerotic fatality occurs during acts aimed at enhancing sexual arousal, such as autoerotic asphyxiation. Unlike suicide, the intent is not to end life but to achieve heightened sexual gratification. 1. Characteristics include accidental nature, death is unintentional. Presence of paraphernalia, items used to enhance arousal. Lack of suicide indicators, absence of notes or prior suicidal behavior. Misidentification can occur due to the lack of understanding of these distinctions. If you'd like further details or clarification, let me know.
Yes, because I still don't get it. I need to know what I need to do for this question because I don't understand what he wants me to do. I need a simplified version or a dumbed down version of what I need to do.
It sounds like you're being asked to analyze and compare specific criminal characteristics and scenarios. Here's a breakdown of what the question might require. 1. Sadistic characteristics in offenders. Describe what sadistic behavior means in the context of criminal offenders. Discuss how these characteristics manifest in various crimes and offender personalities. For example, does the offender derive pleasure from causing pain or suffering? Is this behavior linked to specific crimes like torture or sexual assault? 2. Autoerotic fatality versus suicide. Define what an autoerotic fatality is and how it differs from suicide. List and compare key features of both. For example, an autoerotic fatality might include tools or setups meant for sexual gratification, whereas suicide might involve other methods or leave clear evidence of intent like a note. 3. Discussion of misidentification. Explain why an autoerotic fatality might be mistaken for a suicide.
Okay.
Consider factors like a lack of clear intent or unfamiliarity with the signs of autoerotic behavior. In this kind of question, you're likely being asked to demonstrate understanding and critical thinking by comparing and contrasting the characteristics and explaining any confusion or overlap. Try organizing your response into clear sections. This will help ensure you cover all parts of the prompt. If you'd like, I can help you draft a response to get started.
Nah, I'm okay. No, thank you. You did good enough. Okay, I'm glad I ain't the only one. That shit look hard as hell. That's irritating. To sit there all day and try to fucking kill somebody, one person that's gonna keep running away. Yeah, he got some other type of skill now that they giving out, obviously, to their character. Yeah, some called Ice Slide. Joke 'em. What the fuck? Ain't this over with? I want to go lay down. At least both of my phones are charged. My computer is charged. I'm finna go lay down. Take my coffee with me. Clean up a little bit.